Hey again, class. God, it's like a week before final exams are supposed to start for this semester. I have it going through about July 3rd to give you time to take your final exam. I believe I have it scheduled July 1st. We can double check me on that. I'll send you a note if I'm a little off. And the final paper is due on July 3rd. So you get it done before the holiday, and you are done and dusted with Dr. Masters' summer class. I wanted to talk about the road, and what I see are three central themes with many thematic elements kind of jetting off from them. But I'm going to cover the major themes. And then in your exam, I'm going to give you an opportunity with the road to break one of those major themes down into a thematic element that shows that you understand the process of getting from a major theme to a very specific, concrete thematic element. And so the first one, we'll start with the novel. The title of the novel, The Road. The Road is obviously, in terms of when we talk about narrative structure and design, if structure is those four registers of time that we've been talking about, or I've been talking about to you, let's be honest, but you guys have been writing back to me on your exams about is of course, when was the novel produced and published, and for The Road, that's 2006. When is it set? It's set in its present moment, right? It is 2005 or so, and the bomb goes off, or the bombs go off. Um, and then we have the narrative structure, which is fairly linear, but there are a number of important flashbacks to both the man's past with the boy and his wife, but then extending beyond that into his, young adulthood, his early marriage, his some of his childhood memories, like with his uncle when they go across the lake there, and uh, the present tense of the novel. I think I said that already. The setting and the present tense of the novel. It begins with, if you want to talk about where the very present starts, it's there. It starts with his dream and one of their early nights on the road together as they begin their travels south, and then when the novel ends is it begins with the father coughing, and if someone coughs in like a movie or a film, and they go and then you see their white handkerchief and there's blood on it, the guy's gonna die. Like, sorry to spoil it for you if you haven't finished the novel, but you should have by now. Um, the other side of the four registers of narrative time is narrative design and what I would call narrative space, and place, and even architecture. And the road is the primary space that the action unfolds. So that's one of the first themes. And I think, as a sub theme to that already, you could think about that shopping cart that they are like pushing against the post apocalyptic wastelands. And why a shopping cart? Obviously, the father is very inventive. He was a doctor, I assume. He could have built them something like a wagon with, gnarly four-wheel suspension and everything. But for McCarthy and for the novel, it has to be a shopping cart. One of the things that we associate shopping carts with is abundance of shopping, of having excess money, buying food, buying clothing at Target. We see, if you just stop and count the number of times you see shopping carts in your daily life, I'll bet it's 5 or 6 times. Probably using one a few times a week, or if you're like me and love to go to the grocery store, I don't bother doing gigantic shopping because I do little shoppings for my daily. I love to cook. Um, I cook and play golf. That's kind of been my summer besides teaching this class. And so I'm pushing around a shopping cart every day, but I'll never look at a shopping cart the same way again since I've begun teaching the road. But we also come across them in urban landscapes when we see homeless people, people who are already pushing shopping carts filled with their worldly possessions through what for them is a post-apocalyptic landscape. And the road itself as being the primary landscape on which the action of the novel unfolds. They go into those empty houses that are attached to the road on some level. They find the bunker. They find the house full of horrors. They eventually find the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, the Gulf of Mexico, all while attached to a shopping cart. So the road, I think, and there's so much you could do with it in a paper, and that's ultimately what these themes are geared towards, is your paper and your exam. A second one is the bond between the father and son, but also the tension between the father and son. They have conflicts. They can say the word okay 17 different times in a row on a single page. It's just okay, 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 okay. But you have to read that with all the things that an okay can mean. And that's going to be a question on the quiz, is what is the most spoken word in the novel, and that word is okay. And to think about all the different things that an okay can signify. You know, it's like a stop sign. You think it only signifies one thing, like, okay, sure, I'll go, that's fine with me. But a stop sign usually means stop. It's a intersection. But think about a stop sign in a fraternity house. And like, oh, those are some radical dudes who go around stealing street signs. A stop sign that's been run over by a car. You're like, well, you didn't stop. It's ironic, right? It means the exact opposite of what it seems to signify. And okay, I mean, think about saying okay as we would normally assume you to say, okay, sure, Dr. Masters, that's fine. But also, okay, Dr. Masters, yeah, whatever. And okay is a question mark. Okay? Is that okay? Yeah, it's okay. Or, yeah, okay, meaning it's not quite okay. I could go through a dozen other permutations, but think about all the different ways that the word okay signifies in this novel, has significance. And so the relationship between the father and the son, and obviously that whole connection to these are interrelated themes of carrying the fire and of being the good guys, and of being I love that line, the other world's entire. But also, where does the tension lie between the two? And I think it lies in two different directions that you could take it. On the one hand, the father has memories of that past world, of which the son has none, right? He was born on the eve of the apocalypse. And the way that the son is afraid of the father's past, of his father getting sucked into that past. Remember how frightened he is when they go to the father's childhood home, and the boy's like, no. And it's not just because, well, maybe there's something scary in there, but the ghosts of the father's past are haunting that place. The boy wants nothing to do with them. So the fact that the boy was born on the very moment that the normal world becomes the post-apocalyptic world, that apocalyptic moment, seems really significant. And the father being drawn back into his past and being ambivalent about that, being of two minds. Ambivalent means being of two minds. Ambiguous means it could signify two things, like okay is very ambiguous. If we're ambivalent about something, it means we have a divided mind or divided emotions. We can be both terrified of someone but love them, dearly, like a father figure or something like that. So we can think about the tensions between the father and the son, both their love for one another and their deep investment in each other's entire beings, but also the conflicts and the tensions between the two characters. And that sort of leads me to the third one, and that very prominent theme of the fire and carrying the fire, which is neatly connected with Parable of the Sower in certain ways. Obviously, the nuclear firestorms that decimated the planet and have caused nuclear winter are incredibly destructive. But the boy and the father have created a mythology around fire. That thing that if they lose, they die. But also, it's that thing that they carry within themselves, which we could call soul, or a higher transcendental form of humanity, of the capacity to suffer but remain loyal and faithful to one's moral code. And that moral code is really important, and it's another point of tension between the boy and the father. The last moral decision that the father makes before he dies is to strip the thief of all of his clothing, leaves him naked in the streets, and the son thinks, that's horrible, Papa. You can't do that to another human being. And Dad's like, yeah, well, this is called vengeance, son. And the boy has no room in his moral economy for something like vengeance. What's its point in the world that he's inherited? But it's very much part of the father's sort of past, and I think he feels vengeful even towards the memory of his own wife. So there's my three themes. We've got the road itself as a signifying presence in the novel. We've got the past world and the present world, and how that's a source of tension and conflict between the father and son, but also the love they share. And then finally we have that notion of carrying the fire, of being the good guys, being people that don't eat other people, which, if that were the main quality that you needed to have for being a good person in this world, I don't eat people. I think we'd all be like, I'm a good person. But in that world that the father and the son occupy, obviously that becomes a line in the sand that you can't cross and still call yourself a human subject with autonomous free will. Oops, I've gone too long. So that's part one. One of the questions will have to do with the word okay. And in the next video, I'll show you another one of my cats if they come around, and their name will obviously be the bonus question because I'm predictable. All right, take care, everyone.